It was Thanksgiving, and they had only set out 5 plates, not 6. I stood in the doorway of the dining room, letting my eyes roam the table, the same table we had used for years. My place was gone. In its place was a vase of artificial eucalyptus, a white candle, and silence. Pamela, my sister, arrived 20 minutes late, laughing as she walked in wearing a designer coat and the kind of voice that was made to fill a room. "Ah, Taylor," she said loud enough for everyone to hear, still keeping it simple, I see. Her tone sounded like charity. I took my place across from her without saying a word. She dominated the dinner as if she were holding court, telling everyone about her new promotion, how her boss had said she was the brightest mind in the room. Mom beamed. Dad nodded. Even my uncle, who never remembered birthdays, asked for her business card. No one asked me anything. Not about the long flight I'd taken to be there, not about the work I hadn't posted online, not even about how I was doing. At one point, Pamela leaned in, her voice sweet as honey but sharp enough for irony. "It's kind of cool how you went off the grid, like a sabbatical, only for 5 years. Laughter followed. No one interrupted. I didn't move, didn't defend myself, just raised my glass, took a sip, and let the moment consume itself. Because I already knew something she didn't. That shiny salary she'd been bragging about, I signed for it. But not yet, not here. Let them laugh, let them underestimate me one more time. It would make the silence later ring even louder. They think I'm adrift, not just between jobs, but between choices, between lives. To them, trying to figure things out is code for failure, for giving up on what they called a perfectly good path. The truth is, I walked away 5 years ago from something that looked successful on paper but seemed to be eroding with each passing day. The salary was high, the office had windows, the meetings were full of people who smiled with their mouths but never with their eyes. And Pamela was one of them. She worked 5 floors above me and never acknowledged it unless she needed something. Fix this slide, run the numbers by tomorrow, make it look like it was my idea. And I did, every time until I didn't anymore. One morning, I closed my laptop, turned in my badge, left behind my name on the office door, and an inbox full of unread compliments. No big announcement, no goodbye email, just a clean exit and a private promise. I would start over on my own terms. Over time, I built something no one saw coming, a boutique consultancy, lean and discreet, big enough to matter but small enough to stay hidden. 3 contractors, no physical space, clients who paid on time and never asked where I went to college. I didn't post about it, didn't add titles to my bio, didn't tell my family. And they filled the silence with their own version of me. The quitter, the dreamer, the one who never really settled down. They wrote the story as if it were fact, but the ending, that part, is still mine. It came the next morning, a text from Pamela, "Brunch tomorrow, bring the girls, wear something cute." No context, no question, just a directive dressed in sparkles. I stared at the screen for a while. I hadn't seen her outside of family events in years. We never had coffee, never called. The last time we were alone together, she'd asked if I was still freelancing on purpose. Part of me wanted to ignore it, part of me didn't, because I already knew where she worked. I'd reviewed her department's quarterly numbers 2 weeks ago. My company had been hired to fix inefficiencies, and she was one of them. She didn't know, of course. My name showed up in her inbox only on contracts, only on approvals, only on payroll. She thought I was invisible. So I said yes, of course. "What time?" she answered instantly, as if she expected me to comply. 11, Liston Cafe, don't be late. Liston Cafe, of course. It was the kind of place people came to be seen. Crisp white dishes, sun-drenched windows, waiters who called you by name and posted you on the cafe's Instagram. I put down my phone and went to my locker. I didn't need anything fancy, just clean lines, sturdy shoes, and something sharp enough to cut through that table if necessary. She wanted a performance, ideally. I would give her one, but not in the role she'd assigned me. Liston Cafe smelled of lemon zest and polished ambition. I walked in on time, not a minute early, not a second late. The hostess gave me a look that lingered too long on my shoes, then smiled as if she'd made a decision about me. Pamela waved from the back. Her table was full, 3 women in matching neutrals, eyes bright with mimosas, laughter loud enough to sound like power. When I sat down, No one stood to greet me. Pamela barely looked up. "Hi," she said, as if drawing out the word made it sweeter. "We were talking about dating apps. Taylor's gone off the grid. Probably still thinks swipe is for credit cards." They laughed. One of them, Elisa I think, cocked her head and asked, "So what do you do?" Before I could answer, Pamela leaned in. "She's exploring, you know? Soul first, spreadsheet later. That kind of freedom is rare." It wasn't even cruel on the surface, just carefully packaged condescension. I stirred my tea. The waiter arrived with menus, but Pamela waved him away. "We'll do the set menu, she's with us." That last part, "she's with us," hit harder than it should have. It wasn't hospitality, it was hierarchy. I looked around the table, their watches, their elegant posture, their casual assumption that I didn't belong unless someone claimed me. I didn't correct her, didn't mention the consultancy, didn't say a word about her department or her salary or the name printed at the bottom of the contract. Instead, I smiled, took a slow sip of water, and folded my napkin in my lap. Let them think I was a nobody. It would make the reveal that much more memorable. Brunch proceeded as they'd expected. The women swapped stories about conferences and clients, about partners who didn't pull their weight and interns who cried when criticized. Pamela was in her element. Loud, elegant, performing. I let her talk, let the dishes come and go, smiled when appropriate, nodded when necessary. I let the version of me she'd painted live on a little longer. And then, without warning, the waiter returned with a leather folder for the check. He placed it in front of me, already covered. "It's already paid," he said, with an ease that made it clear this was not unusual. "The Lorington Impact card on file took care of it." "That's the company, right?" Pamela blinked. "Wait, Lorington what?" The waiter looked confused, then clarified. "It's whoever booked the table, a partner account at Lorington Impact. They have courtesy here often. Your name is Pamela, right?" Her face didn't move at first. Then something flashed, a twitch behind her eyes, recognition fighting with disbelief. "Yes, that's me." She looked at me, really looked, for the first time that morning. I didn't move, didn't explain. I simply picked up the bill, opened it, and scanned the zero total as if it were routine, because it was. One of the women leaned over, curious. "Are you from Lorington? What do they do?" I folded the receipt and put it back in my folder. "We manage performance," was all I said. I stood up, straightened my coat, and turned to Pamela with a silky smooth smile. "Next time, let me know if you want me to include dessert in the bill. It'll save you the surprise." Then I walked out slowly, so she would have time to feel it. It wasn't the first time Pamela had seen my name. She just never thought to read it. Weeks before brunch, she had received a performance memo from headquarters, a standard, carefully worded review with actions and goals. She bragged about it on LinkedIn, honored to be selected for this strategic initiative, excited to grow. She never mentioned the signature at the bottom, T. Lorington Partner. It was there, in bold, printed on the cover letter from the firm to which her company had outsourced its departmental analysis. She'd read the bullet points, liked the formatting, even quoted one of the lines in a staff meeting, but the signature she'd glossed over, because she'd never imagined that Taylor, the sister she teased for not using her degree, might be the one shaping her performance reports, her deadlines, her bonus eligibility. A few months earlier, HR had included her in a compliance meeting. It was routine. Taylor's company was already under contract. Pamela signed the confirmation form without even batting an eye at the bottom of the contract. The same initials, the same name, Taylor Lorington. But when you spend years looking down on someone, you stop seeing them clearly, you stop imagining that they might be right in front of you. So even when she didn't see them. And now, as she sat at a table she thought was hers, watching me walk away without raising her voice, she knew. Not because I'd said so, but because the signature she'd ignored had just paid the bill. When I turned back to the table, Pamela was smiling too much, too fast. "Wait, so you work there?" she said, trying to laugh it off as if it were a misunderstanding we could all laugh our way out of. Her voice was light, but her hands spoke the truth. One was resting on her phone, the other fiddling with the edge of her napkin, tugging, folding, tugging again. I sat back down. "I don't work there," I said. "I built it." The table fell silent, until the waiter, still hovering with a tray of empty glasses, stopped as if he'd sensed the change in the air. Pamela blinked twice. Elisa, the one with the perfect lipstick, leaned forward. Wait, you're Lorington? The consulting firm? Pamela, that's your payroll, right? Pamela made a sound, part cough, part laugh, and said nothing. I took a slow sip of tea. We work with a lot of departments, I added softly, but the technology division, that's personal. The woman in front of me widened her eyes. Pamela's mouth opened, but no words came out. I grabbed my purse, checked my phone, and stood. Ladies, thanks for brunch. Pamela, always a pleasure. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't need to, because the power wasn't in the speech. It was in the silence, in the way the laughter stopped, in the way no one filled it. And as I walked away, slowly and steadily, without looking back, I knew something Pamela had only just realized. Respect isn't taken, it's given. She called that night. Not right away, not during the post-brunch silence, but hours later, long after the waiter had cleared the last glass, after the sun had set behind the trees and the shadows made everything seem smaller. My phone rang once, then again. I picked up on the third ring, not because I owed her anything, but because I was curious what version of the truth she would try to tell. Hey, she said, that was weird, huh? I didn't answer, let the silence stretch. I just didn't know. You could have said something we wouldn't have, She didn't say made fun of you. She didn't say treated you like a joke. She didn't say humiliated you. Why didn't you ever tell us what you do? She asked, her voice lower now, as if volume could hide intent. I leaned against the counter, watching the city lights twinkle past my window. You guys weren't listening, I said. You were busy writing your own story. Silence. So, Taylor, can we just agree that this doesn't leave this table? It's not really relevant to HR, right? There it was. Not shame, not apology, just fear. Not that I had been erased, but that she could now be held responsible for it. Don't worry, I said. The contract speaks for itself. She didn't answer right away. Maybe she thought I was bluffing. Maybe she realized I wasn't, because for the first time in years, I wasn't the one trying to be understood. She was. The next time we saw each other, it was through a screen. I'd pulled up the quarterly audit presentation 5 minutes early, as usual. The conference room on my screen was empty, walls clean, chairs arranged, a bottle of water untouched in the center of the table. Then the camera flashed and Pamela walked in. She didn't see me right away. She was talking to someone off-screen, holding a leather briefcase as if to give her authority. Then she looked up, saw the monitor, saw my face. Her smile didn't break, not right away. It froze, tilted, then slipped a little at the corners. Let's get started, I said, my voice calm. This session will cover divisional spending and accountability for the third quarter. No one else in the room spoke. I clicked on the first slide, an analysis of the department's inefficiencies. Pamela's name came up twice, once under review pending, once under recommendation for restructuring. I didn't move, didn't raise my voice, just walked them through the numbers, the overruns, the missed targets, the silence where leadership should have stepped in. She scribbled notes as if she could undo it all with a nothing. But we both knew the paper trail was clean. At the end, the director thanked me. One of the partners nodded and asked if we needed to escalate. I smiled. No escalation, just documentation. It was at that moment that Pamela realized something no brunch table had ever taught her. This wasn't personal, it was professional. And in that room, under those lights, with my signature already on the file, she wasn't my sister. She was my business. It happened quietly. No announcement, no raised voices, just a memo. Pamela was placed under review pending further due diligence. The words were clean, almost sterile, a few lines about procedural review, departmental oversight, non-compliance with internal boundaries. But I knew what they meant. Her promotion was frozen, her travel approvals revoked, access limited until further notice. Her schedule, once a parade of calls and leadership workshops, began to feel empty. She texted once, "Is this your fault?" I didn't respond, because it wasn't revenge, it was response. She had played a role in a system that assumed certain people didn't matter, that erased quiet workers, that rewarded performance over contribution, volume over value. And now the system was watching her. She began coming in early, staying late, checking in on things that had previously been beneath her, but it was too late for that now. Because the emails had already been pulled, the reports had already been reviewed, and the person who held the mirror up to her decisions no longer had to explain herself. At the next leadership meeting, I was listed as the external auditor. She didn't speak the entire meeting. I logged off before it was over, and in that silence, the kind that follows exposure, not accusation, I understood something simple. I didn't need her to fall. I just needed her to see where she was. No applause, no satisfaction, just consequence. I didn't go back to the office. There was nothing there that I needed anymore. The last audit report came out on a Friday. I signed it from a sunny cafe 2 hours outside the city, where no one knew my name and the waitress called me ma'am politely. The silence seemed deserved this time. Pamela never contacted me again, not with a call, not with another message. I heard quietly, as these things happen, that she was considering other opportunities, a polite way of saying that the building no longer had room for her as it once did. And I stopped shrinking, stopped apologizing for being hard to define, for building something invisible, for leaving before the applause started. I entered spaces more slowly, held eye contact longer, let the silence stretch when someone asked, "And what do you do?" Because now the answer didn't need to fit into a sentence. It lived in the way I carried myself, in the way I no longer needed the room to applaud, just not for it to decide who I was for me. A few weeks later, I walked past Liston Cafe again, not by chance, just life. Pamela was there. She didn't see me at first, but when she did, our eyes met for an instant. She looked away and I kept walking, not out of pride, not out of revenge, but because I no longer needed her recognition. She couldn't rewrite me, not now, not ever again. They don't ask about me anymore, not at Thanksgiving, not in passing conversations, not even in family group messages, where silence has a way of speaking louder than any insult. And that's okay, because I no longer need them to talk about me to feel complete. I've learned that revenge doesn't always come in big scenes or public apologies. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the quiet of a balanced room, in the look someone gives you when they finally understand who you've always been. I don't need Pamela to apologize. She already said everything she needed to when she stayed silent. And I didn't need the company to fire her. They didn't. She stepped away from a version of power that was never meant to last. As for me, I came back with something she could never take away. My own definition, my own name signed without hesitation, my own presence no longer explained, no longer dismissed. I didn't need to scream, I didn't need to win. I just needed to stop playing the role they wrote for me. They laughed at brunch. I signed the bill and walked away, unconcerned. Taylor has always been underestimated by her family, and especially her sister, but it was in their silent actions that she was able to turn things around. Tell us in the comments what you would do in Taylor's shoes. If you liked this, please like this video and subscribe for more stories like this.